Good morning, Yogi, and welcome to the mat. My name is Dennis. I'll be leading today from inside. It's a cool, damp, wet Mississippi morning. I'm going to start off with some bed stretches. So this is basically going to be kind of like a two-part flow this morning. I don't want to keep it too long, but the most important thing is to realize the stretching that we need to do before we get our day started and before we get into any kind of awakening, energizing flow. I'm going to start by lying flat on my back on the mat, as if I was laying in bed and you just wake up. I'm going to start with a few stretches. What I like to do before I even put my feet on the floor in the morning is I wake up and I'll lie on my back for a few minutes and stare straight to the ceiling and try to set my intent for the day and for what I have to look forward to and what I did yesterday will not be in my thoughts as much. Try to focus on now and be in the moment and come to your breath just for a few minutes. As soon as you wake up, stare at the ceiling. I like to take my knees and pull them up close to my chest and kind of give yourself a hug. You're stretching out your thighs, your hip joints. You can roll your ankles around a little bit. You hear some popping and some creaking, especially first thing in the morning. It's okay. Don't pull too tight. You don't want to stretch too much. You just want to feel a light stretch. Like with the help of my hands, let my knees roll off to the left side. You can take your right arm, stick it straight out to your right, with your gaze facing that way. Or you can look up. It really doesn't matter. If this is too much of a stretch right here, you can take a pillow and put it under your left leg and just sit here for a minute or two and relax. People with sciatica or any other kind of back or shoulder issues or hip issues, it's always a really good plus. Really, really good for you to stretch in the morning before you even put your feet on the floor. Now, before coming out of this pose, what I like to do, simply because I have a few back issues, is I like to help my knees and the weight of my legs come back up to center. I'll put my left hand under my left leg, grab my knees, and ease them back up to center. Give yourself a big hug again. Draw it in just a little bit tighter than the first time. And now we're going to lean our knees and our legs over to the right side. Again, you can take your left arm, stretch it out. Your gaze can face towards your left hand, or you can look up and just sit here and relax. And breathe. And sit here for another minute. And focus on now. Don't worry about what's going to happen later on today. Again, use your hands to help bring the weight of your legs and your knees back up to center. Give yourself an even tighter little hug. Right there. Now release your legs back to the mat. And that's basically it for my bed stretches. I like to do those 2 to 3 times before you even get out of the bed. Sometimes you're kind of rushed. If you just take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, stretch. 3 minutes out of your day is not going to ruin your day. Just take those 3 minutes and love yourself and get those stretches in. And after a mild warm up, come back up. And we're going to turn over and get into a tabletop position. We're going to do some energetic flows and some stretches. Go ahead and come up into downward dog. And this being our first dog of the day, you can kind of walk it out a little bit. Heels alternating to the floor or towards the floor. They don't have to go all the way to the floor. Ease up into plank position. Untuck the toes. Come forward. Upward facing dog. And breathe. I just have my tops of my feet and my hands on the mat. The rest of my body is in the air. If that's a little too much, you can ease your knees to the mat. Tuck the toes, lean forward, chaturanga to the mat. Sphinx pose. Place your elbows directly under your shoulders. Untuck the toes. If you can do a little bit more stretching on this, you can go into seal pose. If not, I recommend you just stay here in Sphinx. My seal pose, you just extend your arms. If you're in seal, come back to Sphinx pose. Relax. Put your hands under your shoulders. You're going to push up for Cobra. Gaze to the left. Open up your chest. Back to center. Gaze to the right. Open up your chest. Back to center. Ease down. Plank position. Downward facing dog. You can walk it out just a little bit and then try to stay static. Most important part here is a straight line from your hands to your hips. Pushing your chest towards your thighs. Breathe in, get one last push. Exhale. Plank. Untuck the toes. Upward facing dog. Tuck the toes, lean forward, chaturanga. Back up to plank. Downward facing dog. Knees to the mat. Knees about the mat's width apart. Touch your big toes together. And lean forward to child's pose. And breathe. Feel your belly. Breathe into your thighs on your inhale. Exhale, your hips fall to the floor. Back up to tabletop and then plank. We're going to pick the pace up just a little bit because we want to energize and awaken our body. We're going to go into downward facing dog. 2 big breaths. Plank. Untuck the toes. Upward facing dog. Tuck the toes, lean forward, chaturanga. Back up to plank. Down dog. Back to plank. Untuck the toes. Upward facing dog. Tuck the toes. Lean forward. Chaturanga. Stay on the mat. Come into Sphinx Pose. Untuck the toes. Seal pose if you need a little more. And back down to Sphinx. If you were in seal, use your forehead back to the mat. Hands on the shoulders. Cobra. Try not to have too much weight on your palms, but also don't overextend your back. Left, open the chest. Back to center. Go to the right, open the chest. Back to center. Back to the mat. Plank. Down dog. I'm going to roll up through the spine into the plank position. Lean forward. Yogi push up. Halfway down. Fire up. Back to dog. Roll up through the spine again. Plank. Lean forward. Chaturanga all the way to the mat. Back up into tabletop. Knees as wide as the mat. Toes touching. Back to child's pose. Come back to the breath here. And back up to tabletop. Into the plank position. It's our last little bit to start the day. I'm going to pick up the pace just a little bit more. Come on to the right side of your foot. Right-handed side plank. Reach your left hand towards the sky. Your gaze can be up there towards your thumb, or you can look forward. Hold it here for just 2 more breaths. Take your left hand to the mat, all the way to your forearms. Left side, forearm plank on the left side. One more breath. Follow your right hand all the way to the mat. Both forearms on the ground. Stay in plank position. Hold it here. Engage your core. Engage your glutes. Your body might be shaking on the exhale a little. It's okay. So is mine. Ease your hips to the mat. Come up into plank position. Now on the left side. Side plank on the left. Reach your arm towards the sky. 2 more breaths. Raise your hip up just a little bit. Follow your right hand to the mat. All the way to your forearm. Forearm plank on the right side. Follow your left hand to the mat. Forearms on the mat. Stay in plank. Engage your core. Tighten your glutes. Stay here for 3 breaths. Last breath. Ease your hips to the mat. Fire up to plank. Use your knees down, mat's width apart. Toes touching, going back into child's pose. Come back up to tabletop. Just ease your way around to your back and your sit bones. Couple last little core stretches. Lie all the way on your back. Bring your heels to where your fingertips can touch your heels. If they can't, just get them as close as you can. I'm going to fire up into bridge pose. This is a really good strengthening pose to hold. You fire your hips towards the sky on your inhale. And hold. Engage your feet. Push your heels to the mat. Push your hips to the sky. Feel this in your thighs, your core. And breathe. Take both your hands, raise them up above your shoulders, pointing away from the top of the mat, palms facing the sky. Come up on your tiptoes and push high as you can. Now, when we come back down, I want you to feel each vertebrae touching the mat as you're coming down. On your exhale, you're going to roll your back down. Feel each one of your vertebrae slowly come back to the mat. Keeping your toes to the mat, your heels in the air. Roll your spine down all the way to flat. That's a nice little massage. Now your heels back to the mat. Bring your arms down. I'm going to lay here for Shavasana for about a minute or two. However long you need. Once the video ends, you can stay in Shavasana. Always remember to come back to your breath throughout the rest of the day. And bring your hands up to your third eye. The light and the love in me honors and respects the light and the love in you. Namaste. Go throughout the rest of the day with a smile and good intent, and always staying aware in the moment, being in the breath.